Hello and welcome. My name is Matt Fowler and I am the Manager for Education Services here at Corridor. I'm here today with Cheryl Jones, our Director of Product Services, to talk to us today about the policies and procedures manuals that Corridor produces. And welcome, Cheryl. Cheryl has over 25 years experience in the home health and hospice arena, and she's going to tell us what it takes to make these manuals, what goes into Corridor's process for this, and we're going to take a look at what the insides of these look like. Cheryl, when Corridor looks at the concept of a policy and procedure manual, is there a philosophy we use when we put everything together?
Well, Matt, we really look at what are the laws, regulations, and standards that need to be addressed in policies. We also look at what are best business practices that should be incorporated even though they may not be in regulation or accreditation standards, but they will still help a business or a home health and hospice succeed in their practice. Also, we look at how detailed should a policy or procedure be to meet the requirements. Some policies may be vague because there are various interpretations to those particular policies, and then some policies are very specific due to regulation. We also look at what policies should be open for client customization without affecting the applicability. So you can see we really take a lot of different things in consideration.
Great. So what are the different elements? If you could just take us through some of the different things we put inside our Corridor Policy and Procedures Manual.
Well, number one is the manuals are operational manuals. What they are not is they are not clinical procedures manuals, meaning they do not have clinical procedures such as how to change a Foley catheter. They can, or they do contain things like infection control policies, which is hand hygiene, tuberculosis, and how to characterize patients, etc. So while some things may seem clinical, they're really geared more to the standards for infection control. The policy and procedure manuals come in a two-part set. The first manual is an human resource manual that covers basic human resource items needed as it relates to job descriptions and competency checklists. This allows flexibility for the organization to use their own job applications, job evaluations, even though we do have a few templates. But they also can have other HR specifics that are such as benefits, 401ks, and their own customization can take care of those kinds of products. In the manuals, there are crosswalks that indicate the appropriate condition of participation standard and the accreditation standards for a particular policy. There is a table of contents that is hyperlinked to the policies for ease of use. That way, if you have your CD and the surveyors there and you're looking for your patient bill of rights, you can click on that in the table of contents and it will take you to that policy. There are also hyperlinks within some policies that link to another policy that may have more detailed information that is not included in a particular policy. This happens many times when we're looking at HIPAA policies, HIPAA privacy and security policies. At the back of the manuals is what we call a reverse crosswalk, in which the policies are listed by Joint Commission, ACHC, or CHAP standard numbers for ease during the survey or pre-survey activity work.
I really love the idea of the crosswalks. Can you kind of explain how those crosswalks benefit an agency?
Sure. A crosswalk is essential to the accessibility of certain policies as they relate to the accreditation standards. The crosswalk can assist the client as you are preparing for survey, completing any pre-survey paperwork, and during the survey to find policies quickly for a surveyor. Let me give you an example. We just recently had a call from a client wanting to know where their investigational or experimental drug policy was, and it also related to, in Joint Commission, an MM standard and an RI or a rights standard. So we sent them to the crosswalk and said, look up the MM 010301 And what it did, it showed them that that policy was there and what the policy number was. So there are some standards that do have multiple policies. For instance, infection control is going to have a lot of policies that relate to one particular standard. So the crosswalk really, to me, it's very beneficial due to the pre-survey paperwork that has to be sent in to the accrediting bodies, and also during the survey itself to help them find something if they just cannot find it.
Great, great. And, speaking of standards, these standards, regulations are ever-changing. We know this. What does Corridor do to make sure these manuals are kept current?
Well, we do a lot of things. We have subscriptions to all the accrediting bodies and their updates. I monitor all applicable websites for changes. Staff and myself attend workshops offered by accrediting bodies that explain their interpretations of the standards. I attend CMS, OIG, Office of Civil Rights, the open door sessions, and those types of things as far as webinars and other discussions. We have subscriptions to various publications such as Home Health Line, NHPCO's newsletter, some different state newsletters. I'm on many, many listservs such as different attorney groups, the OIG, the Office of Civil Rights, CMS, industry groups, and we attend NAC, NHPCO, and actually sit in and listen live at the sessions on those national conventions on regulatory trends in the making. So my email, it has a lot of information coming in it, and we do read it and consider it for inclusion in the manual if it's appropriate.
So I know we push these updates out to our current customers on a biannual basis, so twice a year, every April and October. And kind of take us through, if you would, what goes into the production of these biannual updates.
Something that I do on a monthly basis is I monitor the Medicare administrative contractors, the recovery audit contractors, the zone integrity contractors. I go in and monitor the accrediting bodies, home health and hospice quality websites, etc. I have a whole list that I routinely go in and I check because they're not necessarily going to tell you that an update has occurred if it's not too substantial. We also, us in the company and myself, monitor trending topics on LinkedIn, state associations. I read a lot of blogs, listservs. We want to know what issues are stumping our clients so that maybe something that we maybe need to add to a policy that would help them. We also survey Corridor consultants or associates that are working in client sites for areas of concern that might be needed.
It sounds like Corridor really has its hand on the pulse of the industry, and I think that's going to be important as we move forward into this highly regulated industry. So, other than the things you've mentioned, are there any other reasons that Corridor might update a manual? I get a lot of phone calls from clients. Sometimes when the surveyor is in their organization, they're calling us looking for certain things, but we also hear from clients that say surveyors were looking for some particular language that is really what they are looking for, but it's not necessarily clear in the standards what the language they want. So many times if I hear from Joint Commission or ACHC or CHAP surveyors that the surveyor said something about a particular policy. I also have a good relationship with all three accrediting bodies, and if I hear from the accrediting body representative themselves asking questions of how our manuals are maintained, and sometimes they have suggestions that would assist their clients or our clients. Now, you be assured that if something drastic occurs in regulation that requires an immediate update, we would and we have done that in the past. Or if it was because of correcting a mistake that could negatively affect the clients. Matt, we update over 15 to 18 different sets of manuals, and sometimes a typo occurs or something would happen and something wouldn't be in there, and if it did negatively affect, we would take immediate action. What's an example of a time when a client called up and really influenced a change in one of our manuals?
Well, this is a topic we don't like to talk about, but the addendum that I added to infection control on bed bugs was one that we did because we had multiple calls from clients, and they were all needing something because it was becoming much more prevalent in the media as well as what people were seeing in clients' or patients' homes. So we did add a particular addendum for that. Usually when a client calls about a particular policy, it might be just to change one word that clarified it with a surveyor. But normally it's the additional, in fact, these updates that are coming up soon, we are going to be adding something about hospice traveling patients, which we have not included before. That is typically what we don't see a lot of that, but we're adding that, and that came from a client's suggestion that that might be something that we would need to add.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So tell me, Cheryl, what does the future hold for these manuals?
Well, I think because we're in healthcare, ever-changing health landscape updates. Updates will always be forthcoming, and the changes are always going to happen. Regulations, standard changes always, again, will continue to influence policy. And with I know with Joint Commission, a huge emphasis for Joint Commission is on patient safety. It always has been, but it seems like that's a direction they're taking. We also know that just recently the federal government updated their emergency management. Now our policies meet those guidelines, but it's those kind of actions that happen, and we don't always know when that's going to happen. We also are seeing an increase in compliance scrutiny, which will require that policies emphasize that. And you're going to see more and more compliance language added to the policies, and mainly that would be at updates and that type of thing. But it's when we read things that we know that's coming down the pike about compliance. So those are some main things. We're always going to need policies and procedures. We have to. They're required by most states and most everybody for licensure, and it does help us run our organization efficiently and within all the limits of the regulations, laws, and accreditation standards.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Cheryl, and this has been so very helpful and informative. And for those of you watching, stay tuned. We've got more on the Corridor product line coming up, and have a great day.